Growing up, my family loved diners. The old kind, with cracked vinyl booths, rice in the salt shakers, and those servers, well, they called you honey, whether you knew them or not. I remember this one diner. It had a giant sign right on the front door, service with a smile. And at first, it delivered. The server smiled as she greeted our table. She smiled as she took our order. But the minute something unexpected happened, the smile, it faded. My request for some apple butter was met with hesitation. Us receiving a wrong order was met with a sigh. And when we finally got the check, well, that came with no expression whatsoever. Even as a kid, I remember thinking, if that is service with a smile, I'd hate to see service without one. It taught me a lesson, even at a young age, one that I've carried with me over 20 years in boardrooms, with service teams, and small businesses alike. Every organization has a motto. Very few have built the conditions required to live it. Today, my team and I, we survey thousands of consumers every year about what drives their decisions. Our findings point to three things: trust, reliability, and consistency. Edelman's Global Trust Index reinforces this annually. Customers reward the brands that act dependably, not just market cleverly. We trust the organizations. They act the same whether it's convenient or not. And yet, inside of so many organizations, that consistency, it's fragile. The Gallup organization, they report that in the United States alone, over 50% of employees are disengaged at work. Globally, it's worse. And when engagement erodes, trust erodes with it. See, brand trust, that depends on employee performance. Employee performance, well, that depends on motivation. Our motivation, well, that's affected by our daily experience. And when that experience is fractured, trust fractures with it. Because trust, it's built in the moments when it's easiest to not keep the promise. And see, this is where I see a lot of leaders start to make some poor assumptions. We hear those numbers about engagement or apathy or psychological absence, whatever term you want to put on it. And the first thing so many leaders think is, our people, they stopped caring. But people haven't stopped caring. The system that supports them has. Every year, I also speak to thousands of employees about what drives their sense of purpose and joy and fulfillment at work, and they care deeply, and they feel like the odds are stacked against them. Consistently, systems and process are the things that they cite as chipping away at their motivation and sense of purpose. BJ Fogg, his research at Stanford found that employee performance is dependent on these three factors coming together: motivation, ability, and a prompt. And even if one doesn't exist, behavior doesn't stick. You can write down a set of great sounding values. You can hold that incredible kickoff meeting, spend some time in training, but if the system makes the right behavior harder than the wrong one wins. Because behavior follows the system, not the slogan. This is true in business, in family, in friendships. Our reputation is a direct reflection of the things we most often repeat. We've all seen this play out publicly. Wells Fargo spoke about trust and partnership, and then rewarded aggressive quotas that violated both. Their words didn't fail. Their structure did. Behavior followed the system. On the other hand, look at Costco. Costco pays above market wages, has reliable schedules, builds long-term employee value into its model. and their customer renewal rate sits near 90% annually. Here's an organization who has connected their promises to their practices. As I looked at these two brands, the difference, it wasn't their vocabulary. It was the mechanics behind it. What I realized is that a motto without mechanics, well, that's just marketing. And I have to be with you, over the years, that early diner experience, it stuck with me. I began to wonder, this disconnect between motto and mechanics, could it be bigger than a single restaurant? And so I started to look for it as an employee, as a leader, as a consultant, and everywhere I went, it showed up again and again and again. Organizations who were saying all of the right words, and then employees who struggled to live it. So, as a researcher, I did what any good researcher would do. I measured it in surveys, in interviews, in conversations over coffee, and it didn't take long for the trend to be unignorable. Quietly, every day, every single person steps in wanting purpose, joy, a sense of value, and work was quietly working against them. I knew organizations existed who they moved in opposition of this trend, and so I became fascinated. What do they look like? What do they do? What do they focus on? What enables this to change? And what I discovered was rhythm, a set of habits that, when practiced, enables organizations to take their promises and put them into practice. And what I'd love to share with you is what those 6 habits are. The first R is to resolve what matters. It all begins with clarity. What matters most today? So many of us don't clarify what's most important. And we have conflicts arise all the time. Is it speed or is it accuracy? Is it innovation or is it safety? And if that answer depends on who's in the room, you don't have clarity. You have chaos. The organizations who move promise to practice are really clear about resolving what matters. H is about holding the line. We build our set of standards, and we build what we say are non-negotiables often when things are perfect and calm, and then pressure rises and we find ourselves compromising in ways we never considered. The organizations that hold the line make intentional pre-decisions about what has to win. What are the non-negotiables? Where do we flex? Where do we not flex? Why? Is you belong here. Connection is oxygen for engagement. And I want to be clear, most people don't burn out because the work is hard. They burn out because their work feels invisible. Organizations that make purpose known, seen, felt, understood, break the pattern. They don't just assume their best performers know that they're doing a good job. They take the time to acknowledge, to make it feel owned and felt in their organization. T is about tempoing the work. The organizations I studied that get this right don't assume that we always have to go. That energy is something that we restore on the weekend. They recognize it must be built into the workday. Burnout is real for so many organizations, and the tempo of work is undermining to many. So what does it look like to move at a pace and a cadence that restores, not just depletes? H was all about hearing the system. One of the things that I've observed at every organization is that we're typically really, really good about measuring outcomes. We are really, really bad about understanding how work actually feels. Hearing the system is about knowing and addressing the sources of friction inside of the everyday. These organizations can name it, and they go after it. And finally, M, make it repeat. This is the hardest part. This can't be something that we do one time in a meeting when it's convenient. It must be something that people can count on to show up and happen every single day. These organizations found a way to rewire their muscle memory so that nothing is by mistake. It is purposeful, it is clear, and they have understood that when they do this, that their purpose will survive pressure when it becomes that rhythm. It's 6 habits. 6 habits that, when practiced one at a time, enable us to connect the things that we say are most important to our organization, the things that inspire belief and purpose and make us want to wake up in the morning, and they actually happen. It wasn't that long ago that I got to go back to the site of that old diner, and it was interesting. The sign was gone, so were those vinyl booths, and in its place was a silver diner. I got down to the table, and there was a card, and it said, "To our guests, our promise. You will receive prompt service with a smile. Your order will be 100% correct. Our restaurant will be sparkling clean," and then the work made the words come to life. It didn't feel like an accident. Someone had made intentional decisions about every aspect of that experience. They understood that every organization has a motto, but very few build the structure required to live it. Here's the thing. Your employees, your customers, they walk through the door because of what you say. They stay or go because of what they experience when things go wrong. So the next time you see your motto, your mission, your values, ask yourself, have we built the system so that purpose survives pressure? Because behavior follows the system, not the slogan. A motto without mechanics, well, that's just marketing. And your purpose will survive pressure when it becomes a rhythm. Change the rhythm, and the words will finally mean something.